This asphalt clearly exceeds the setback requirement. The measuring tape confirms it.
I am telling you, this plat map proves we are well within the limits.
Cold air bit my face while hazard lights strobed against my windows, and the smell of hot asphalt slid under my front door like a warning. It was 7:12 a.m. on May 3, 2024. I stepped into the Cul De Sac in slippers and saw a crew painting chalk arrows across my flower beds. The beeper of a backup truck chirped like a smoke alarm. My lavender, gone under a black river. The foreman pointed at a clipboard and said, "HOA work order, ma'am." My garden curved like a little moon, and they cut into it as if it were nothing. Neighbors watched from driveways, arms folded, faces shut. The HOA president, Karen in a neon vest, waved like a marshal on a runway and yelled over the roller, "We're widening for safety." This is where the fight starts, I told myself, because HOA paved 22 feet into my Cul De Sac garden that I pulled the plat map. I asked them to stop. I asked for the permit number. Karen lifted a wrinkled paper and said, "It's all approved, honey." The foreman pretended not to hear me. I called 2 board members by 7:29 a.m. voicemail. I sent 3 emails by 8:10 a.m., subject line urgent encroachment now. One neighbor whispered, "Don't push it, they fine people." The roller hummed louder. Fresh tar hissed where it hit damp ground. I stood there with my coffee shaking in my hand, and the cup tasted like smoke. I knew my line. No screaming, no stunts. Proper channels only. But I would make those channels sing. I drove to the county records office before lunch. A plat map is the legal picture of property lines. I gave the clerk my address. She slid a file as thick as a sandwich across the counter. The file landed with 63 pages. There was a storm drain easement curved like a smile, a right-of-way, and a dotted line where my garden ended. I requested certified copies. I lined up photos, emails, and call logs in a binder. Timeline item 1 April 5 at 4:27 a.m. false trespass call. That's when Karen fussed because my solar lights were too bright. Patterns of false reports can be prosecuted. On May 3 I added a new line, encroachment begins 7:12 a.m. I booked a licensed surveyor for May 5 at 9:00 p.m. so we could mark lines when the Cul De Sac was clear. The plan had 3 clean moves. First, documentation. Second, daylight. Third, an audience. I filed a code complaint with the city for work beyond a permit and obstruction of a public easement. I called the council aide and asked for a quick look at a possible right-of-way violation. I invited our precinct community officer to swing by for a neighborly chat. I also emailed Karen, polite as a school principal, "Please pause all work pending boundary verification." She replied at 1:43 p.m., "We will proceed, the board approved a 22-foot apron." I smiled. 22 feet was the number I needed. The surveyor chalked the true arc the next night. It cut through their fresh asphalt like a razor through cake. We planted little flags. Neon pink. The line crossed the new pavement and said, "In bright grass, not yours." The payoff came on May 7 during evening board hours. I rolled a projector onto my driveway, facing the Cul De Sac. The sun fell and porch lights clicked on. Neighbors came with folding chairs. Kids brought popsicles. I plugged in a laptop and threw the plat map overlay up on the garage, the way dads show vacation photos. The council aide stepped up with the inspector. The officer leaned on his cruiser with the blue lights bouncing low. The surveyor held a tape. I walked the arc with a laser pointer and said, "Here's the curve of city right-of-way. Here's my lot. Here's where the HOA poured 22 feet into space they cannot touch." The inspector asked for the permit. Karen held up the paper again. The inspector read it and said, "This is a seal coat, not a widening." Silence. Then a burst of "oh" from the driveways, like a school assembly the moment a teacher catches the kid with the cheat sheet. Phones went up fast. One neighbor whispered loud enough to carry, "That's gonna cost them." Another added, posted in the group, "Tag the city." The foreman looked at his boots. The inspector wrote for a long time and finally said the part that mattered, daily fines accrue until the obstruction is removed. $2,500 per day. The officer asked me, "Do you want to file a report about the April calls?" I nodded and opened the binder to the timeline page. He took photos. Comments were already rolling under a live post, "Not the garden. And that's a whole street, not a safety fix." Karen tried to chuckle, then blamed the contractor, then blamed me for confusing curves. The projector screen showed the certified stamp. The crowd laughed, quick and bright. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. By May 12th, the milling machine was back like a bad memory, but now it sang for me. The HOA cut and hauled their mistake by the ton. The board held an emergency session on May 14th at 6:30 p.m. and voted 4-1 to accept responsibility and reimburse damages. They refunded my plants, the broken edging, the soil, and paid the surveyor. The amount came to $3,200.50. They also paid the city fees. Karen sent a letter calling it a misunderstanding. The council aide emailed a friendly note, "Appreciated your clear records." I kept it all polite. I even thanked the crew for fixing what they were told to do. The foreman said, "Shoulda checked the map, ma'am." I said, "We all should." Summer settled quiet again. The Cul De Sac looks like a circle, not a runway. Kids ride scooters around the real curve. The lavender is back, small but stubborn. Karen stepped down from president at the end of June. A new neighbor took over and brought donuts to the first meeting. We added a rule that any work touching a boundary needs 2 approvals, city and owner. We also started a little Saturday garden swap. I showed Mrs. Patel how to divide hostas, and she gave me basil that smells like a promise. On July 1st at 9:00 p.m., we watered together in the dusk and laughed about chalk lines. I learned this: you don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to show the line, and invite everyone to see it. Please follow for more HOA showdowns like this. Do you think she got what she deserves? Comment below.